The premium power plenum products featured in today's episode of the Quiet Rifle were provided to me by Vladan Paunovic. So if you need something from him, anything that you see in this video you can get from him. I'll put his email address. That's the best way to get in contact with him. I'll also put down his YouTube channel, his Instagram, Facebook groups, all that jazz. So if you see something you want, contact him and get what you need. So we've got a fun one today. We are doing a full hardcore power package for my dad's Mark I Impact. Now it's not exactly a stock gun to begin with, but it's pretty close. Most of the things that are on it are cosmetic, except for the tune which I did, which I will link up wherever it goes, so you can watch that tune if you like. Today what we're going to do is take it from the 600mm barrel, put a 700mm barrel on it, put a side shot magazine package in there that comes with that barrel, so that the high capacity magazines can be used alongside the regular magazines. And then after that, I'm going to install the power plenum, big external plenum from Vladan. It's an aluminium one, and it will take us from the standard plenum, which is 20 cc's, I believe, on the Mark I, and add, I think this one is 68 cc's. I'll double check that and put it on the screen, but it will drastically increase the amount of power that we can make with this little gun, and that will get us ready for the 357 barrel, which is going to be available soon. So that's going to be fun. It's almost twice as powerful as the 30 cal barrel, and the 30 cal setup is already very powerful, so it's going to be a fun thing to have, a big slinging big chunks of lead around. But within that power plenum upgrade package, I've got a new piece to go into the valve housing and all that jazz. I've got titanium valve seat, I've got a hammer weight, the big plenum, all sorts of fun stuff. Even I think this one might already have a Delrin bumper in it, but if it doesn't, we'll put one in and make it last even longer. So I think step one, we'll check the tune just to get a baseline and see how much power it's putting out from before I start modifying things. And then we'll go ahead, strip it all down, put all the new gear on it, and then tune it up, and then take it down and have us a good time on the range, do a bit of long range shooting. I think it's pretty windy today. It's not windy at the moment, but the day started off beautifully. There was nice, like sunny, clear blue skies, and it's nice and cool. But as soon as I started filming, the wind picked up, and yeah, I don't know, it might be a little messy down there, but we'll give it a crack anyway and have us a good time. So from memory, last time I tuned this thing, I think we ended up with, we were on about 150 bar, which is the top out for this particular generation of regulator, and we got with the hammer spring tune, I think it was about 890 feet per second out of the 600mm barrel, and we were looking at not that many shots per fill, so it wasn't very economical, but it was pretty stout for a 600mm barrel and a standard regulator. So it'll be interesting to see, just to check, see if that tune's moved at all. Yeah, so let's have a crack and see what happens. Right, so not bad at all. The old girls held their tune pretty well. That first shot was like a cold regulator, and it seems like it might have crept it just a teensy weensy bit, so it's thrown out the balance between the hammer spring and the regulator pressure, but as soon as it blew out that first shot and loaded itself up nicely and warmed up and everything, she's banging around 880, so maybe it was 880 that I tuned it to last time, I can't remember. It's also ever so slightly warmer. No, it was warm Pretty sure it was warm when I tuned it, and it's cool now. So there may be some temperature difference just with the density of the air and the science and the, you know, whatever. But yeah, pretty happy with that. Pretty good to see that she's held her tune for so long. No dramas, no wandering or anything like that. So yeah, still quite a stout little tune. Those were the FX Boss 46.3 grain pellets. Those were the ones that had some strange looking skirts on them in my last pack that I used, but this batch that Dad gave me to do the tuning with, they seem to be all pretty good. So yeah, no dramas. Magazine fed nicely, old school FX magazine. Be interesting to see if this new side shot magazine that we put on it feeds well as well. So cool. Time to start getting into the guts of it all. Right, as always, before we get to work on any gun, we're going to make sure it's safe. So we're going to crack her open, have a look inside the breech. Obviously remove any magazines if you've got any, make sure there's nothing in there. Bring her forwards, decock the gun. Then when your gun's decocked, swing around, move your hammer spring to the minimum setting, remove the bottle off the gun, like so, and then fire off a couple of shots on minimum power until the regulator degasses. Lovely. So we've got no bottle pressure. This gauge is a bit cactus by the looks of things. It looks like it's out by about 10 bar. That's an FX gauge for you. But, and there we go. We've got no pressure in the regulator. Everything's all sweet. Looking good. Happy days. Right, next. Scope off. As you can see, as always, I have a nice clean work area. Not too cluttered. There's a nice little quick release scope rings. Pop you back on there. Screw everything back on that you screw off so that you don't lose it. Words of wisdom for the ages. Pop him aside. Yeah, the Mark I had a nice little thumb screw here, which was always a nice little feature, I thought. I think it's a lot cooler than the Allen key version, even though the Allen key version is probably better. It's probably more secure. I just like the idea of being able to do it without any tools. So we'll take the barrel out, pop him back in there so that we don't lose it. Barrel over here. Let's take this Atlas bipod off. This is nice. It looks like it's got a American Defense mount on it. Very snazzy. I reckon we'll take the cheek piece off. Looks like this is a two-piece cheek piece. A little different from the Mark II. Interesting stuff. Screws left in it so I don't lose them. I'll just show you this here real quick. If your pellet probe is loose and going up and down and catching on your magazine, you can adjust that carrier tension with that nut there. You just move it so that it lines up with the hole, move your cocking handle so that the pellet probe carrier lines up with the hole, and then you can adjust it and tighten it up, put some Loctite on it, whatever you need to do. So, handy thing to know, because that can be a problem. Next, pop the rail off. These are all just Allen keys. I think it's a 2.5mm or thereabouts. So no specialty tools required. Just basic stuff that you can get from your local hardware store. Now we need a big thick one. Get that one out. I think this is a 3mm or a 4mm. Lovely. Careful, make sure that you leave those fittings inside it. Don't let them roll around. Now, top plate. This is a good one to definitely make sure that you don't remove the screws all the way out of it. Obviously you have to undo them all the way out of the thread, but leave them housed inside the actual top plate itself so that you don't lose them, and you don't take them out of order too, because there's long ones and there's short ones and they need to be in the right hole. Alrighty, looks like we're free. Jiggle, 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 careful, careful. You can see the different lengths of nuts and bolts in there, so keep them all inside the top plate. Set him aside on an angle. Very good. Pellet probe, pellet carrier, front block. Pop him aside as well. 11mm. Remove your probe. The old valve rod. Got my special pliers here. Nice clamp on it. Hold him in there nice and tight for me. Tiny Allen key in there. Use that to get it started. Give that a bit of a clean, a bit of Loctite on there. So this O-ring, this is the kind of O-ring that might give you trouble. It's a standard C3 bumper O-ring, and we're going to replace that with a Delrin one that will last a lot longer and cope with a lot more punishment than that one will. But we'll hang on to that one as a spare because you never know. Vice grips off, gently back in, under control. Lovely, lovely. Alright, now we'll take the front off the back. Okay. Loosen that off, no need to take it all the way out, leave it in there. Careful, careful now. There we go. Alright, we'll unscrew it from the back. And there's our standard plenum and valve rod assembly. There we go. So this is basically what you're going to replace if you're going to use the FX power plenum. But as far as this goes today, this all stays together. You don't mess around with that at all because we're going to use the standard plenum plus the external plenum for super ridiculous power. Gauge 7/8. Gently, gently loosen her off. Out she comes. Pop all these. Just make sure you're not losing any O-rings when you take your gauge out. So pop him up there. Now I'm taking the plate off because I'm going to replace it with the side shot magazine one. We'll just pop these back in here so that we know where they go. Obviously not cranking down on them because they'll thread out, being that there's supposed to be some material between them and where they bottom out. Beautiful. Put these back in here so we know where they go. Obviously we'll be putting them back in the side shot bottom plate. Not this one, but beautiful. Nearly there. So for this one, we just have to loosen off this grub screw that holds the internals of the valve assembly in place. She's in there pretty good. A little bit of pressure. I want to do this nice and slow because there's a couple of O-rings in there that we don't want to damage. And they move over very tightly fitting surfaces that are kind of sharp. There we go. Alright, that is pretty much that. Disassembly complete. So, these are the bits that we're going to be putting in today. So we've got some spare O-rings out, ready to rock, just in case. They're going to go and replace these ones if these ones don't seal properly. They should do, but it shouldn't be an issue. We have a hammer weight. So we're just going to remove the old spring guide and put the hammer weight in there so that we've got a bit more clout to open a higher reg pressure. We have a titanium valve seat, which is very cool. Having this made out of titanium instead of stainless allows you to, I think it allows you to drill a bigger hole in it. So this has a slightly bigger hole. It's like a 6 point something millimeter hole, so more air can flow through it more betterest. This is the modified valve housing so that it can take the external plenum. So that's the original one there. You'll see there's not a great deal going on there, but this one, it has the bottom bar of it cut off already, ready to rock, so that when the plenum is underneath it, the air can flow through the plenum into the body of it, and then, you know, off it goes and punches the pellet down the barrel. Last but not least, obviously we have the plenum, and then our C3 Delrin bumpers here. We're just going to use one of these little small ones and replace this problematic green boy here. And you know, these last a little while, but if you're shooting high power shots, it doesn't take too long for them to clap out. And we also have the side shot package, the FX side shot package. It's not the side shot branded side shot package, but FX one. So we've got two pieces here. We've got the floor plate and the little magazine, spring-loaded magazine release just there. We've got our side shot magazine. See how she goes. Ugh, that's definitely going to need some adjusting. Look at how slow this is. That's nasty. So I'm going to have to fiddle with that to make sure that actually works well. I'll try it in its brand new state and see if it feeds or not, but I don't think it will, being that slow. So we'll figure something out. And last but not least, 700 millimeters of nice smooth twist X barrel to go on. And this one comes with the Australian issued fake shroud, which just makes it look a whole lot better. It looks very silly with the skinny barrel all the way down to the end. I'm not a fan of that look. But there's nothing inside here. Even the end cap, there's no air stripper on the air cap. It is completely straight through, like your neighbour's annoying V8 when you wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. It's, you know, it's Australia, so it is what it is. First of all, we are going to replace the valve seat with the titanium one. So we'll just pop this bad boy out. A little bit of pressure on the back of the valve seat. When you assemble these, just a little tiny smidgen of silicone grease. Not much at all really, just helps everything slide over everything else. Seat it all the way in there nicely. Done. Now we're going to install our valve body. A little bit of grease over each of the surfaces that are going to touch. There's always time for lubrication. Pop her in there. Now, this big grub screw is what orientates the valve housing properly. I'm just going to look for a nice big flat edge in there, and we're going to get this in there nice and tight. And once you crank down on this, you might see the body of the little valve thingy there spin around as it levels itself out. Mine not so much because it's already lined up pretty well. And that's that. Done like a dinner. Alright, so got our little spring, got our little plate. So I'm going to assemble it so that as soon as the spring needs to be compressed, we can contain it within the actual structure of the valve body. Don't ask me why that's a good idea. It's a very upsetting story. Now I'm just going to get all of these started before I actually crank down on any of them. Make sure everything's lined up where it needs to be first. Save you undoing them and having to do them up again later. Alright, insert that bad boy. Spring very carefully. Cover it with your thumb while you're doing it, trust me. you're going to check the action of the spring, cover it with your thumb. I don't know how many times I can say that. Probably still won't be enough. But now we're safely captured by putting the one back on the top. So that's that done. Be very careful with these. These are very easy to thread. We're going to put this back on here. Looks great. I love that wooden look. Very nice. And a little valve assembly back in. Keeping an eye on the back to make sure that it's lined up nicely. Okay. Now we got that out the way. Get you out. So we've got our hammer spring, our hammer, and now our hammer weight. The hammer weight just fits into the hammer spring, into the inside of the hammer. Nice and tight, nice and snug. And basically the spring just goes over the outside of it and adds a bit of weight to it. Give us a bit more clout. Juicy. Now I'm just going to do this up lightly so that it holds everything together. It's not going to align it, so we need to wait until the top plate is back on to cinch that up completely. But for now, that is just fine. O-ring time. Upgraded bumper, just what we need to make it more reliable. Pinch and pull, nice and clean. O-ring goes on. Perfect. Very good. Alright, that's us. Pop her off, drop it back in carefully. All good. Next, valve adjuster back on. We were just on that fourth line. Pellet probe carrier back in. So when this action is closed, the back of that pellet probe carrier shouldn't be past the structure of that buttstock. It's a distance of 45 millimeters between my two fingers or thereabouts. So we'll check that. Pretty much bang on. Alright. Forward block and top plate fitting up there nicely. So for each one of these, I'm starting off by going backwards a little bit until I hear it click, so that I know the threads are lined up and ready to go, and then I'm going to go forwards so I don't strip anything out, because they're all aluminium. Very easy to make a lot more work for yourself if you start stripping bolts. And you'll notice that I'm just getting them started, I'm not cinching them down. Now that I've got them all started, we're just going to go corner to corner, square it up like you would if you were putting a wheel back on your car. Keeps everything nice and straight. Because this top plate is what lines up the rest of the gun. Now that we've got that done, running forwards, expose this nut at the back, and we're going to give it a bit of mumbo now. Not too much, but enough to make sure that everything is nice and tight. Tight like a tiger. Cheek piece. Top rail. Alright. Let's chuck this bad boy on. This needs to be tight, but only hand tight. A little bit of a nip up, but not much. Don't want to thread anything. As soon as it gives me a little bit of resistance, that's about perfect. I'm going to stop. Oh, that looks great. Put that away. All right, barrel. Nice. Decocked. All right, let's gas her up. See if we've got any leaks. Sounds like it's doing all right. Lovely. All right, bipod. Quick release bipod, always the way to go. Optics. Beautiful. Beautiful. Tell you what, the big girl's looking good now. So we've got the 700mm barrel on it, we got the big external plenum, the hammer weight, all the rest of the good juicy stuff, side shot magazine, so happy days. Time now comes for testing and tuning, and just for maximum giggles, I'm going to leave the tune how it was and shoot a couple of rounds through it just to see how much more power it makes on the same tune with all the power upgrades on it. It should be kind of dangerous, I guess. I'm expecting probably somewhere in the vicinity of 1,000 feet per second with 30 cal, 46 grains or whatever they are. So yeah, I might actually move my my crony and my little shooting table a fair way back away from away from the pellet trap over there. So yeah, this is just to see, just because I can't help myself. And then once we're done with this, I'll tune it properly. I'll turn the regulator right back down so that we can get a good shot count and hopefully aim for just above 900 feet per second. So maybe 920-ish would be nice, I guess, for the 46 grainers. And then that should give us enough room to run the heavy JSBs through it as well, around that sort of 900, sort of 870 to 900-ish, I guess, for the 50 grainers. And yeah, that I'm hoping that will allow for good low power shooting as well, because he does a lot of the same sort of stuff that I do with mine, so he needs quite low power as well as top end power. So if not, we'll have to jiggle it and change it and figure it out, but that's the plan. Ooh! Cheesy Pete's! Good lord! I mean, come on now. It's a Mark 1 impact. Yes, it has lots of juicy bits in it now, but whew, probably better turn it down a bit. So my plan for tuning this thing is going to be, I'm going to start at, I think, at about 120 bar. I feel like I can probably get 900 out of 120 bar just with a little bit of massaging of the hammer spring settings. So I'm going to degas the gun. Obviously then it'll be sweet that I can adjust the regulator down, because currently it's sort of sitting between 148, 150-ish. So I'll bring that right back down and then like open the reg up a little bit and watch the thing climb until we get to about 120, and try and get some good speed out of that. And then hopefully we'll get a high shot count because it's such a low reg pressure, and hopefully we'll be able to, being that it's on the lower end, I'm hoping that the more that the hammer spring is wound down on the minimum power, it will be a real short, sharp, quick, open, close type of a deal, and it'll be nice and quiet on the low powers. So that's the plan. That's the plan. So this is interesting. I'm banging away doing a bit of tuning, and I've wound the hammer spring quite a ways out. It was at 16 mil, 16 mil of hammer spring gap with 148 to 150-ish bar of pressure gave us about 1,000 feet per second. Obviously that's a little bit quick for what we want, and then I've turned it all the way back to probably about 19-20 mil of hammer spring gap, and I've tested it along the way, and I've pretty much been getting 950 to 957-ish that whole way. So I think with the hammer spring weight, I think you need considerably less hammer spring tension to get the job done, because I think what's happening here is the hammer spring weight is so effective that it's banging that much reg pressure open too easily. So even with almost no hammer spring tension, it's still hitting max power. So I'm going to have to either, well, what I'm going to do first obviously is try and put the absolute minimum amount of hammer spring preload on it to try and see how low we can go, and if I can't get low enough with that hammer spring weight in there, I'll have to go back in, take the weight out, and just run the normal hammer spring and tune from there. So, tuning successful. The big girl didn't let me down. It's a little bit tricky. I've never tuned something with a hammer weight before, so I didn't realise quite how little hammer spring tension you really do need once you have that weight in there. But I managed to keep the weight in and still get the lower velocity, so that's good. That means when it comes time to tune for the 357, all I'll have to do is normal tuning. I won't have to go in and put the hammer spring back in or anything like that. So if you're planning on running a 30 alongside a 357 at any point in the near future, that's a good thing to know. You can use, I believe that one is 7 grams, and yeah, it works just fine. So my stats were, I ended up with that 120 bar of reg pressure. The hammer spring gap is 20.5 millimeters, somewhere between 20.5 and 21-ish, depending on which part of my dodgy little calipers I use, but it's right around that 20.5 mark. So that's not much at all. It's a very, very light preload, and it seems like any more than that, and it just comes flying forward and hits that valve too hard and bounces off the valve stopper. So, while we're talking about that, I ended up with a valve gap of 9.2 millimeters or thereabouts. So that's on the Mark 1. You wind it in a little bit, and when you start tuning, you'll have all 4 of the white lines showing, and then once you've found somewhere close to the sweet spot with the hammer spring, you can screw that over travel stop in a little bit at a time until the speed starts to come down just a smidge. So I found a fairly good sweet spot around 930 feet per second, and then I screwed it in ever so slightly and it came down, and then 930 ended up being like the higher end of it, and 920 something was the lower end. So let's dig into it and have a looky-loo at the numbers that it spat out. So with the FX Boss 46 grain pellet, the average speed that I got was 921 with a standard deviation of 3.4. Minimum speed was 917, maximum speed was 924. The spread was 7 feet per second, and when I tune like that, I'm pretty well happy with anything under an extreme spread of 10 feet per second, which is pretty ridiculously good. Under 5 would be even better, but with the variances in pellet weight and air temperature and all that sort of stuff, you are going to see a little bit of variation. And to put that into perspective, like 22 long rifle ammo, like match grade 22 long rifle, you'd be lucky, I reckon, to find a brand that would shoot sort of around that sort of like extreme spread of 30 to 40 feet per second. So this is much more consistent than most of the 22 long rifle ammo that I've used. Especially the cheap, quiet, slow stuff tends to be very inconsistent. So this is 7 levels above that. This is wonderful, and it's got some boot to it too, so happy days. And on minimum power for the 46 grainers was 811 feet per second. So it's a little bit, I probably could have taken a little bit of speed off the top end and put it on the bottom end, I guess, because 811, it's sort of like a medium speed. It's not a super quiet speed, and when I say that, I'm talking about Australian rules. We don't have suppressors, so you really want to be between 700 and 800 for quiet stuff. Anything over 800 usually is a little bit loud, but I figured it would probably be worth it if the top end is super fast and accurate, because we also have the JSB 50 grainers to talk about, but we'll get to them in a minute. They're a little bit slower and a little bit quieter and a little bit heavier, so they sort of absorb everything quite nicely, and they're going to be the quiet one. So this one, average speed 811.4, standard deviation of 5.4, minimum speed 803 feet per second, maximum speed 816, with a spread of 13 feet per second, which is pretty good for being so far away from the sweet spot. Having an extreme spread of only about 13 is still pretty good. So that should be very accurate and not particularly loud. It should be small acreage safe, if you will. So let's move on to the 50 grainers. The JSB 50 grainers, they came rocketing in at an average speed of 883.8 feet per second. So quite a stout tune for the big old 50 grainers, and that little bit of extra weight seems to have lifted the consistency a little bit. So I might have been sort of right on the top end of what is consistent with that particular tune for the 46s, but adding those couple of extra grains of weight and length, and probably a little bit of better quality control with the actual with the pellets themselves, has given us a minimum of 880 feet per second and a max of 886 for an extreme spread of 6, which is very good, and a standard deviation of 2.28 feet per second. So very, very nice. That's good. So assuming that the barrel harmonics are all Mickey Mouse, that should be ridiculously accurate with a nice big heavy 30 cal round. And finally, on minimum power, the quiet tune, if you will, I got for the JSB 50 grains, they're slinging around at 780 feet per second. So they're in the nice, a little bit up the speedy end of the quiet tune, but still quieter than what the 46s are going to be. So there's, I think just with that extra weight and length and drag moving down the barrel, that's going to be considerably quieter than the lighter pellet. Seems to sort of have a bit more wiggle room if you're shooting a heavier pellet. So minimum 776, maximum 786 for an extreme spread of 10. So this tune seems to really be loving those heavy ones, the JSB 50s. So that is very good for a minimum power tune. So that should also be very accurate pending barrel harmonics if it's leaving at a nice vibration on the barrel. So that's what we have to find out right now. So we're going to skip on down to the range, shoot some groups at 50 meters and maybe some groups at 100 meters if it's not too windy and the rain doesn't come back. It's been raining on and off all day. So yeah, the sun's out now, so let's go. So 50 meters, I'm going to skip 25 because the weather could break at any minute. So just going to do the best I can with what I got and go straight to 50. JSB 50 grains. I reckon these will be a little bit better than those other ones. Never really had much luck with JSP Boss, or FX Boss rather. Alright, so here we are. This is the 46 grain, whatever it is. So that's, where are we? 2 fingers. 2 fingers there and one that I dropped. I've been wriggling around on the bench like you wouldn't believe because I'm being rolled by mosquitoes right now. And up here, these, I think, if I wasn't wriggling around and jumping around quite so much, that's like 2 fingers there. To me, that's what that group really feels like. These ones were like, this is all me. This is not the gun. This is me being eaten by mosquitoes. So I think I'm going to turn the power down so it's nice and quiet, because that's pretty loud. It sounds like a subsonic 22, which I guess you can really expect because it's making the same power as a sub 22. So we will crank it down to medium power, or maybe minimum power even, because that's still pretty quick. And I'm going to try and do some real slow, deliberate shots and see how we go. Swirling wind, my nemesis. Ridiculous. They shoot way better a little bit slower, so maybe there's a bit of harmonic know-how going on there. So let's try these big thickies at the slow speed. Don't you do it. I don't think I've ever rushed so many groups during an accuracy test. This is ridiculous. There's march flies, there's mosquitoes, and I have no blood left. So much for slow and deliberate. It is all pretty much one hole, but it's definitely a 2 fingers hole. So that was the 46 grain, and these are the 50 grains or 50.1 or whatever they are. So that's probably, I'm going to call that 3 fingers. 3 fingers at 50 meters when you're being eaten by mosquitoes and march flies. So yes. Well, I was going to do a long range test and go out to 100 meters, but I'm absolutely getting ruined by the bugs. So that's going to have to wait until another time, and it's too windy now anyway. So yeah, that's going to have to do. But I think I may end up doing a little bit more fine tuning and come back down again maybe next weekend, but I'm going to have to get some more ammo because I used a little bit more ammo than I thought I was going to use. But either way, I'm getting out of this little patch of bush. So that was less than ideal. I think there's a little bit of fiddling to be done, but given the conditions, I think we're not too far off. My back is on fire. I'm a little bit allergic to mosquitoes, and I'm very itchy right now. But yeah, I think maybe with the 30 cals, they might do better just a little bit slower. Maybe they're better around sort of 900 to 910 rather than 920 to 930. The 50 grain ones seem to be a little bit more promising. I reckon I can get them to group quite a bit better with maybe just a little bit more speed even. It seems like we're real close. We just gotta, you know, find that barrel length, barrel wave, barrel vibration to leave the muzzle on, and yeah, we'll be sweet. So an inch at 50 meters isn't terrible, but it's also not great. So I can do a bit of hooting and yahooing and twizzling and whatever, and fine tune it a little bit more. Maybe take it up, maybe take it down, see how that goes. But for what it's worth, the shot count is pretty good. So I shot 20 rounds at full power, so 10 with the 46s, 10 with the 50s, and then 20 shots on low power, and the bottle gauge went from 250 to 200. So that's what your shot count's going to be looking like. Much more efficient than it was previously. So yeah, happy with that. And now I can shoot it all the way down to 120 bar too. So you don't have to take 2 bottles with you if you go on a hunt. You can just use the 1 bottle and get way more shots. So happy days. Very good. Very good. Now, you may be wondering why you would go with an external plenum when you have the option to go with the FX plenum. The FX plenum's great, but it's a little bit small, and to get one you have to, at the moment there's a big waiting list, and pretty much all of the dealers that have them are going to want you to send your gun to them so that they can install it, and they're going to charge you to install it, and then you're going to have to pay postage on the way there and on the way back, and you're going to have to pay for the product. So it's you got to sort of weigh up the pros and cons of that sort of thing. I haven't heard of Herman's doing that yet. I don't know how they're planning on managing that option. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I would expect that they would probably just send the part out, but I don't know. So just speculating. But that is one of the main reasons why you would go with an aftermarket part like this, because it's probably going to be slightly more expensive than just the part for the FX power plenum. But by the time all is said and done, you don't have to be mailing your gun to and from the gun shop to get it fixed or installed rather, and you've got your gun the whole time, and then your new product comes in, you put it in, you've seen how easy it is to do, and then off you go. You're at the range the next day, you're tuning and you're having a great time laughing at how powerful it is now. So it's a good way to get ready for the new bigger calibers coming out with the 357. That's just going to be so much fun. A 357 with an 800mm barrel is just ridiculous. I love that. And I really do hope they make 800mm barrels for the smaller calibers as well, because the longer the barrel, the quieter the shot. So like if you have a 600mm barrel, and if the only thing you change is the barrel length, so you put an 800mm barrel on there instead of a 600mm barrel, same caliber, same tune, same everything, the 800mm barrel will be quite a bit quieter. So I'm hoping that that becomes an option, at least for countries where suppressors or silencers are illegal like they are here. So yes, that's about it for today. So a little bit of fiddling and fine tuning still to do to get those group sizes down, but aside from that, happy as a clam. And I really like the way the black cover looks on that plenum. It looks great. So wicked. If you enjoyed the video, finger me right in the like button and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Toodaloo.